Okay, all right, what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go ahead and finish up this session here. And if you have printed out already the global Atlantic interest rates off your thing, go ahead and print them out. It shows you right here on the agent resource kit, it says current rates right there. That's where you print them from. And if you see this, it says June 2019. So they publish those monthly, but you know, if you put something in, it's going to be locked in for at least a year once you make a sale. So, and they change them very infrequently. But this has the rates for all your products and the Choice Accumulation 2 product. And so we're going to go through all these interest rates and explain that to you. And we got this packet right here. This is a 31-page brochure. It covers the Choice Accumulation 2 and the Choice Income 2. So we're not going to discuss about the Choice Income product because you're interested in doing the accumulation product. So that's all we're going to focus on for the rest of this deal right here. So we're just going to go through page by page, and if you follow along with me, okay, so this first page right here, it's the same information from the worksheet on the Choice Accumulation. You got issue ages 0 to 85, and the premium limit's 25,000 minimum, and then 1 million 0 to age 80, and then 81 to 85, 500K, and you can't go higher than that with home office approval, and but just know those are the basic ones. Then it's got the same withdrawal charge, the 5, 7, or 10 year, 5, 7, 10. So this is basically going over the same information that we did on this, the one simple 2-page worksheet, but it's just going into a little bit more detail on it. And so this gets back also to the commission structure on the 5, 7, and 10 that you can compare as well. Obviously the 10-year is the best to go with on the commission structure. Then it talks about the death benefit rider that you can add up age 0 to 75 for 0.05%, and it gets a 7% roll up, or adding to the face amount annually for 15 years. Okay, which it goes through right here. And so like I say, all this information we've already covered one time. Now we get into the Choice Income, and so I'm just gonna go over those sheets. We're not gonna pay any attention to those at the moment. And we'll just keep it going until we get back to the page, let's see here. Page 14. Okay, so when we get on page 14, it talks about the different interest crediting strategies that we've already discussed one time before. Okay, so you get the 1-year fixed rate, 1-year point-to-point, 1-year monthly point-to-point, 1-year point-to-point with participation rate, 1-year point-to-point with performance trigger, and a 2-year point-to-point with spread. Okay, so I'm going to just go over these different crediting strategies one more time. Okay, the 1-year fixed rate is, and then you can also use this corresponding interest rate to look at the 1-year fixed rate. Okay, it says right here fixed rate is for the 5 years 2.5, 2.6 for the 7-year, and 2.7 for the 10-year rate. Okay, so that's the first is the fixed rate. Okay, so we got the 5-year, 7, and 10-year. Okay, so the fixed rate is 2.5, 2.6, and 2.7. Okay, so now below this you'll see it has bailout rate. And it has bailout rate on each one of these different categories, okay? Let me explain to you what that means. Okay, so the bailout rate on the 5 years, 1.5. Well, that's actually 1.5 on all three. Okay, so what the bailout rate means is, say that someone comes in, they give you $100,000. You say, hey, look, we want the 5-year plan at 2.5%. Okay, we'll say that the next year rolls around on the anniversary date and they publish the new rates. And they say, okay, well, the new rate is 1% for the next year. Okay, well, that's below the bailout rate. So if any rate goes below the bailout rate, the customer can say, hey, give me all my money back plus the interest that I've earned. I don't want to be in this program anymore. And so they will do that. They'll give them their money back plus whatever interest that they've earned. And so that's what the bailout rate is. And so if you look at this, each one of these different ones has a bailout rate. Okay? And so, but like, for instance, the Standard & Poor's 1 year point to point is, let's see what we got here. 5.2, 5.35, and then 5.45. Okay, so on a 10-year plan, the cap is 5.45%. So back to what we had talked about before, if the market goes up, say it goes up at 8%, you're capped off at 5.45. Okay, say the market goes down, well, you're locked in. In other words, you don't lose any of your principal or your interest. Okay, and then the market goes back up, you can get more interest again, but you'll never go below the principal plus the credited amount that you've earned annually. And so anyway, let's talk a little bit about these participation rates right here. I mean, these different crediting methods again. Okay, so you got the fixed rate. You see what that is? Okay. That's with the cap, okay? So you got a cap, what's MSCI. Okay, that's another index. That's 1 year point to point. Okay, so it's 4.8, 4.9, 515. Then you got the Standard & Poor's index. And then you got the monthly cap. That's where I talked about monthly, okay? It can go 1.6, 1.7, and then 1.8. Okay, so in other words, how the monthly cap works is every month they measure the market. Once the money goes in, they measure the market when the contract gets issued that day. And say it's at, 2,000 points or 20,000, whatever. Okay, say it goes up 2%, they measure in 1 month. They measured it again, and then you get the full 1.8. And then the same thing for the next month, same thing for the next month. If it goes down, then they do the same thing. So in other words, the monthly point to point, they add them up each month. And that's where you get the percentage at the end of the time. And as I mentioned before, the actuary said this is the best way, because if you look at 12 times 1.8, I mean, that's, 10 is 18%, 10 months. So if the market does good every month of the year, you're gonna make pretty good money on this annuity on that rate. Now the participation rate shows 90%, 95, and 100%. Okay, so what that means, that's on the PIMCO bond index. Okay, so what that means is on the 5 year, say the market goes up, or the bond index goes up 8%. They're gonna pay you 90% of what it goes up. on a 5-year plan. So you get 9 times 8, you get 7.2. If it's 95%, it's 95% of the 8%. Or if you're on a 10-year plan, the market goes up 8, you get the full 8. So that's how a participation index works. In other words, it gives you a participating percentage in the market. And all this information that I'm giving to you today, this is more for you to know internally. This is not really something that you're going to discuss with the client. Okay, and then it's got performance trigger and a spread. And so in other words, a spread is like 1.45. So in other words, if it goes up 5%, they subtract 1.45 and then you get the difference. That's called the spread. So anyway, they have all these different crediting methods. And getting back to it, you know, the Standard & Poor's Index annual point to point, that's the most conservative, best returning index credit that you can get. So if you look at this sheet right here, it's going to have all these different indexes. 1-year fixed rate, 1-year point to point. You can put the Standard & Poor's, Russell 2000, MSCI index, 1-year monthly point to point with a cap is Standard & Poor's index. And then you refer to the interest rate to see what those rates are, to correspond with the different index. And like I say, the simpler you keep it, the better it is for the client, because they're not really going to want to get into all of this. I mean, that's one reason why they're purchasing as an annuity, is to keep this all simplified. Any questions on this so far? Okay, we're going to keep rolling. And we're kind of zipping through this, so that way, when we get to the end of it, you can jot down any questions you have and follow up with me on it there, Leah. Okay, so I'm moving along here on the booklet. Now it has 1-year fixed rate. Now, if you get into this training booklet, it'll have the fixed rate, it'll have the interest crediting strategies based on point to point with the cap, and it gives you a little bit more of an explanation of how they're credited, which I just showed you on the board. But, you know, so they're all pretty basic, and believe me, they create all these different indexes. Nationwide has an index called the Zebra Index. I mean, people come up with all kind of different stuff to make theirs more attractive. Now here's the bailout privilege, waiver of withdrawal rider. Okay, so that's what I told you was the bailout rate. If they give you a bailout rate of say 3% on the annual Standard & Poor's Index, and say next year they reissue these new rates and they come out with a bailout rate of 2%, well then the customer can say, hey, look, you know, you went below the bailout rate. I mean, the cap went below the bailout rate, so I want all my money back. And so that's how that works. Then it talks about the market value adjustment, the death benefit, nursing care waiver, terminal illness waiver, and then it talks about suitability. And we've already kind of went through suitable guidelines on whether it's a good purchase or not. And so this is a fantastic product. It's very easy to sell, and you should be able to sell a lot of it. And typically, right now, we're pretty much done with all the training, so I'm just going to go right into how I would do it in the family's house. And so say that I was in there, and I'd say, and I went through and I'm doing the list, and I found some money to move, and I'd say, hey, well, Ms. Smith, let me show you how our program works. Okay, it's called the Choice Accumulation 2. And so we've got $100,000, okay, and then I'll look at the 10-year rate is on the Standard & Poor's Index, 1-year point to point is 5.45%. Okay, so we're getting a guaranteed 5.45%. If the market does good, you're going to make over $5,000 annually on this product. And so how it works, is say the market goes up right here, and you're starting out at $100,000, it's going to go to $105,450. And say next year the market goes down. Well, you're locked in. You're not going to lose anything. In other words, you keep your principal plus what you gained. And so then the next time the market goes up like this, you're going to get another 5.45%. So it's going to go to $110,900. Okay, and the same thing the next year. If the market goes down, it locks in. So in other words, you can't never lose any money. So that's how this works. So all we have to do, now you've already completed your pre-arrangements. All I have to do is just get you to sign this one transfer form right here that I have with me in my briefcase, and get a copy of your driver's license. And then, and also whatever the information on where the money's coming from, and I'll fill that out. We'll transfer those funds into this guaranteed product with Global Atlantic. And one other thing I wanted to share with you, Ms. Smith, that this is really exciting and a great rate of return. But your husband, who's 72 years old over here, okay, we can get him an additional 7% guaranteed annually as a death benefit added to the $100,000 in his name. And so it goes up immediately 7% to $107,000 every year for 15 years. It's guaranteed at 7%. Now there is a 0.5% charge for this rider, a rider fee. But hey, if it's going up $7,000 a year, and he happens to pass away, that death benefit would go to you or your children, which is very exciting. And so anyway, all I have to do is just get you to sign on this form right here, and we'll get the money transferred. And thank you so much. And thank you again for this, and I hope this gives you some more information. Please feel free to write down any questions you have, call me, email me, and I'd love to come up there and spend a little time with you in the field, and let's close them out. We've already moved several $1 million this year, and also in addition to, over $1.5 million to $2 million in the pre-need. So things are really going great with the program, and we want to bring it up to you. Thanks.